Welcome to the Gorgeous Gray podcast. I am Nicole Scott, your host, registered holistic nutritionist, rest mindset coach, author of the Gorgeous Gray movement, and the co-creator of the Menopause Reset program. In this podcast, we have real conversations about aging as a woman and all the pressure and uncertainty we feel as we head into menopause and beyond. Let's face it, aging is not an easy conversation to have. But I say it's time to talk about the messy middle and offer hope when we feel like giving up on ourselves. Let's talk about our fears around gray hair, our muffin tops, and even our dry, itchy vaginas and everything in between. I will help you reconnect to your feminine energy and offer real solutions from experts in their field to navigate aging as a woman. I believe we, as women, deserve to shine even brighter in this next chapter of life. So with a sense of humor and a lot of compassion, let's dive into these vulnerable conversations. Hello, everyone. It's Nicole Scott from the Gorgeous Gray podcast, and I am here with a very special guest, Andrea Donsky. Thank you for tuning in today.
Thank you for having me, Nicole.
I want to just give her a really formal intro because she has done a lot in her years in this field of wellness. So let me just introduce Andrea so you really know who she is. She is a nutritionist in menopause, just like me. She's a menopause educator. She's an avid menopause researcher who's on a mission to change the conversation around menopause. Andrea has more than 22 years of experience in the health and wellness industry. I've been following her probably the whole time. She's a respected multi-award-winning influencer, TV health expert, podcast host, speaker, author, entrepreneur. And her newest adventure is wearemorphus.com. It's a no-judgement movement where women in perimenopause and menopause feel heard, validated, and supported. I'm part of that group. I have been, I think, from probably day one. I just love everything that you post in there. And Morphus helps to elevate the physical and emotional symptoms associated with this phase of life through education and a line of supplements created by women for women in menopause. Again, thank you for being here and welcome to the conversation.
Well, thank you for having me. And I'm happy to have it. It's one of my favorite things to talk about.
Yes, you guys need to follow her on Instagram, Morphus, because she is hilarious. She's even got her kids involved, her husband involved, and really that, bringing a sense of humor to the conversation around menopause when sometimes we don't find it humorous.
Yes. And most of my videos live on TikTok, funny enough. So TikTok is really where I stay. And then we post it to Instagram because a lot of women or people were saying, I love what you're doing, but I don't have TikTok. Can you post it on Instagram? So we posted on the We Are Morphus platform on Instagram as well. But thank you for mentioning that.
Okay, TikTok and Insta. There we go for whoever, because I have some people that don't like TikTok and then some that don't. So it's nice that you have it on both. Well, let's dive into this conversation. So I think it's going to have to start with your story because, we being in the health industry, we can always take different paths. And I've watched you kind of unfold, the unjunk your junk food, being in the food industry with your background, my background, you did a lot in the industry. And then all of a sudden you see this huge pivot in Andrea on social and what she does. And I'm like, usually what that happens is there's a story there. So let's hear the story of your pivot.
Yes. Well, I always say that what I do for a living is generally based on where I am in my life. And I have created, so I have a business partner, Randy Boyer. We've been partners for 22 plus years in this health and wellness space. And when we started our first company, we were, buying our houses, we just got married. And then when we had our second company, which is Naturally Savvy, we still have that, we were having kids and we were raising children, which is what led me or prompted me to write Unjunk Your Junk Food. Like, what are in our ingredients? What are we putting in our body? And then when I went into menopause and I really started, so I had my third child at 41. At 42, I started having really interesting symptoms. And for the next 5 years after that, I was like gaining weight. I gained probably close to 15 pounds in perimenopause. I was having terrible headaches, pain all over my body. I wasn't sleeping well. I mean, you name it, I had it. And one of the main things was that I'm a type A, triple type A personality. I am always go, go, go. I love what I do. I love working and helping women, and I have 3 kids, and so many of us are so busy.
Yeah.
And then when I was going through perimenopause, I ended up going from like that type AAA personality to type F minus. And I remember thinking to myself, what is happening to me? I couldn't focus. I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't even get out of bed some days, which was really unusual for me. And I didn't really understand what was happening to my body. So from 42 to 47, I was like, and I remember asking so many people, what's happening? Like, are you hungry? Because I'm voracious. I couldn't satisfy my hunger. And I'm like, do you have that? Or do you find that your boobs are growing a lot? Because I couldn't even get my clothes over my boobs. Or do you find that you're gaining a lot of weight, or like all these things that started happening, but I couldn't get the answers that I was looking for. And at 47, 2 months after my 47th birthday, I got my first hot flash. And then I was like, light bulb moment for me, going, wait a minute. Maybe everything that I've been feeling for the last 5 years has to do with menopause. I didn't even know the word perimenopause. I didn't know the definitions. I knew nothing other than my mother had suffered for 20 years with hot flashes. That was it. And then that just led me to, and I had really bad hot flashes for about a year. Like, I couldn't function. I mean, to the point where I remember the day very well. I looked at my husband. I'm like, I don't understand. I'm a nutritionist. I'm in the health and wellness space. This is what I do day in, day out. How come I had zero? Why was I so blindsided when it came to menopause? Like, how come I had no idea? And that just led me down my journey for the last 5 years of understanding, researching, and getting as much information as I could in this space so that I could take what I learned and share it with everyone. So, and that was really been my mission over the last 5 years.
Like amazing, right? It's amazing what comes into our life and how we pivot. And now you're going to be inspiring a whole group of women that are starving for this information. So yeah, I would say that you're kind of one of my menopause heroes. When I started to go through the change, kind of similar story, and I started to see you popping, information out there, and I was like, I didn't know that. And oh my gosh. And so my weight gain of 35 pounds in 1 year, and I did nothing, different, is like, oh, that's why. So I just want to say thank you for being that mentor to so many of us, even, health professionals, that same thing. There is not a lot of information out there, but people like you are starting to change that conversation. And I want to be in that field of, conversation with women about this topic. So why don't you share just a few things that you've learned along the way? So you mentioned that those first 5 years, if you were to go back to your younger self at age 41, 42, now of the information that what would you have done differently?
Ooh, good question. In terms of doing something differently, I think I would have prepared my body better. I would have understood. And, it's very hard, obviously looking back, it's easier to say, oh, I should have done that. And, hindsight, we know, right? So I think the key would have been, and really understanding what happens to our body as we get into this phase of life. One of the main things that I would say that I would have done differently is I would have taken more time to really understand what it means to stimulate my parasympathetic nervous system. How do I relax? How do I take my nervous system from like up here to like calming it, right? What are some things that I can do on a regular basis, implementing some type of practice? And I think that alone could make a huge difference, because that's not how I tend to run. I tend to run very high energy, right? So I think understanding that really, how do we stimulate that relaxation part of our body better can help, because that helps with our adrenal glands. And we know our adrenal glands take over for our ovaries once they take their much needed break as we go into menopause. So anything I could do to possibly nourish my adrenal glands better, manage my cortisol levels, all of that would have been something that I would really have focused on more.
Okay. And are there a few tips on what you would have done then? Because for a lot of women, they're hearing, okay, like, how do I support my adrenals? I'm a type A like you, Andrea. Like, what are some of those things that can calm you down?
I would say some type of meditation practice, some type of even breathing. Like, you don't even have to meditate long. I was listening to something this morning, and a meditation expert was saying 10 minutes a day. That's all you, if you have 5, do 5. If you have a minute, do a minute. Like there is no, you have to do it for this long, because we think meditation, we're like, okay, we have to sit, 30, 40 minutes twice a day. It's not like that anymore, right? And we really can get the benefits just by sitting for a few minutes. Journaling. That's a huge one. I love journaling, doing the spiritual work. I know you and I both are very active in doing the work, going and looking at patterns, looking at old programs. How do we help ourselves? Because a lot of those old programs, a lot of the trauma, whether it's big T or small t, my mother is an expert, a trauma expert, and I do a lot of videos with my mom under conversations with mom. And she talks a lot about what happens to us as we go into this phase of life, how things start to come up for us. And if we don't deal with them, it can really lead to a cascade of different issues. So I would say, to answer your question, journaling, walks in nature are amazing, deep breathing, setting time on your phone, just to remind yourself to breathe. So many of us breathe so shallow, just taking that minute to relax, spending time with animals, if that is something that you enjoy, watching a funny movie, so reading a good book, anything that just kind of helps you just to take it easy and to just, okay, I'm going to take it down a notch.
Awesome. And how about, any type of extra supplements that a woman could start to use if their adrenals are feeling tapped out? What are some of the support nutrients that you think could help a woman?
So I'm a really big fan. I love adaptogenic herbs. I kind of look at it as a band-aid, right? So adaptogens, what they do is they help us cope better with stress. The other thing I would really focus on is magnesium. So many of us are depleted in magnesium. About 70 to 80% of us are depleted in magnesium. And magnesium is responsible for hundreds and hundreds of functions in the body. So as we go into this phase of life, and a lot of people may not realize this, but there's a bit of a vicious cycle that goes on. So when we go into perimenopause and menopause, we have a tendency to be more anxious, to have more stress. And that when we are more stressed or more anxious, we deplete magnesium from our body. When magnesium is depleted, we become more stressed. So that's that vicious cycle. So we really need magnesium. I always say, I talk a lot about supplements because that is my passion. I've been researching it for the last 5 years, specifically for women in this phase of life. And magnesium, I say, there's foundation supplements that I believe we all need to be taking. And magnesium is one of them. And I always say, start with magnesium glycinate, because that is attached to the amino acid glycine, which helps us to relax. So it can help with sleep. It can help with blood sugar regulation. It helps to reduce inflammation. So many things that we're more prone to as we get into perimenopause and menopause.
Amazing. And is there a favorite brand that you have? I think that you've created your own, or starting to create your own supplement line. Do you have anything in that area?
We do. We're going to have a magnesium. Actually, we haven't launched it yet. It will be in the US market to start, but we will have a magnesium for sure. Yeah, it could, because it's one of the ones. It's a foundation. To me, we need to now. We, as a nutritionist, you and I, we want to make sure we're getting a lot of our vitamins, our minerals, and our antioxidants from our food. So we don't want to out supplement our food, but I do believe that our food is so deficient in minerals that supplementing is important. So to answer you, yes, we will have it. It hasn't launched yet, but we will have it on our website, Morphus.com. I can't wait. I'm so excited. We will have a line of menopause supplements for women in menopause, by women in menopause.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to share that with my menopausal women. So that is so incredible. Yeah, congratulations. And thanks for doing all the hard work, because I know it's not easy to launch a new product into the market. So you mentioned magnesium as a foundational. What are some of your other favorite foundational products, nutrients that you think a woman will need heading into this phase?
Probiotics. Our gut is so crucial, gut health, as we get into this phase of life. We need to make sure that we are going to the bathroom once a day. So probiotics are great for digestion. They're great for our immune system. The other thing that I recommend for digestive health is a good soluble fiber. You want to make sure that if you are not going once a day, that is the number one thing before you start any supplement routine, before you start any type of hormone therapy, if that's something that you choose, you need to make sure that your gut is functioning properly. So you want to make sure that, if you have leaky gut, or you have anything that's going on, which I'm guessing you've spoken about on your podcast since you are a nutritionist. So you really want to focus on that gut health. Very, very important. So probiotics, and then any type of fiber. Like I love soluble fiber, but a good fiber, which also is important to make sure you're getting a lot of your vegetables, right? You're getting that 25 to 35 grams of fiber a day. Your low glycemic fruits, like your berries or your sour apples, like making sure that you're getting, good fiber, and then complex carbs. If that is something that you choose to eat at this phase of your life, complex carbohydrates like wild rice or millet or quinoa or, a sweet potato or squash, anything that's going to give you the nutrients that your body needs at this time.
So great. Well, thank you for that. Now, you had mentioned that you had gained about 15 pounds when you were going through this phase, and you, look great. I just saw you on TV not too long ago, winning a pretty amazing award. So you've definitely leaned down again. Can you maybe give some tips and hope to women who are really struggling with weight? Because I find that seems to be kind of that number one conversation that kind of gets women in the door of menopause. And then they're like, what else can I do? But as we know, weight loss is a big one for women in menopause. It's like the overnight muffin top. Where did this come from? Why are my pants not fitting me? And it can be the most frustrating thing as a woman, especially like someone like yourself or me. We take care of ourselves, we eat well, we know what to do, and then just like pop, it starts, and you're just like, what's wrong with me? And I know for me, my own experience was I was almost like embarrassed and ashamed of like, how can I be this nutritionist and help other when my body is failing me? So what did you do? Like, what was your kind of, experience of losing that, 15 pounds in menopause? Because it can be, we hear that it's really hard to lose weight in menopause. That was the myth going into menopause for me. It's really hard to lose weight in menopause. And I think that is like stuck with a lot of women, and then they give up.
So here's the thing. I have a very different take on this, and I think than a lot of other people do. And my take is, let's back it up for a minute. As we go through perimenopause, our bodies are recalibrating. Our bodies are changing. We need to be gentle. My mantra is we need to be gentle with ourselves during this time of our lives. Yes, it is tough. And I remember it, and I know it's not easy. I remember when I was going through it and I couldn't fit into my clothes, and I had gained at least 15 pounds. Like, I had gained so much weight. I remember I didn't feel good. And I'm like, what? I'm not even changing anything, what I'm doing. Like, I haven't changed how I ate. I'm not changing how I exercise. So it's a matter of understanding that your body's recalibrating. Be gentle with yourself and give yourself the space, give yourself the time that your body needs to recalibrate, to actually transition. So knowing that it's temporary, that when we go into menopause, I did lose my weight, and I'm back to what I was before, even a little bit lower than I was before. As our hormones level out, things get back to normal for many of us. We are able to lose the weight for many of us. Now, everybody has individual circumstances, of course. So I do say, I start with that. I start with, it's not your fault. A lot of it is not your fault. A lot of it is your hormones and the transition. They're going up and down. They're fluctuating. Our body's trying to hold on to that estrogen. We tend to hold it a lot in our belly. Our cortisol is rising, which again tends to put on weight in our belly. So like stress plays a big role. There are so many factors that come into weight. So it's a complex discussion. Having said that, I also say that it's important to understand that even though it's not, a lot of it is out of our control, there is some that is in our control. What is that? Well, focusing on our nutrition, focusing on eating a lot of protein, eating your fiber, your good quality fats, making sure that you're hydrated, making sure you're drinking half your weight in ounces every single day. And your exercise routine, like what worked for us before menopause doesn't work for us anymore. And again, another big one of my mantras is we need to change. There's a term that I coined, it's called taking inventory of self. And I came up with this term because I was talking to a girlfriend of mine, and I was in a slump that day. And I was like, I was kind of feeling down, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I remember she had said to me, what do you mean? Like this, and you're that, and you're that. And I'm like, you know what? You're so right. Like, I feel like sometimes we have to take a step back to really write it down. What are the things that we're really good at? What are our superpowers? What are the things that drive us? What are we doing now that may not be working for us anymore, including what we're eating, including our exercise, including our mindset. Everything has to shift. As we're transitioning, we need to transition the things that we were doing before as well. Everything's always changing, right? So that's how I look at the, perimenopause is the menopausal transition. That's how I look at that phase. And then when we go into menopause, we come out on the other side stronger, different, more empowered, so for many of us, although it's hard for us to see the other side when we're going through it, because there's such smoke and clouds and we're like miserable, right? In there, I get it. But as we do get into that other side, it is possible to lose the weight. It does get better. Things level out. It's like the whole the chaos, the storm of that transition settles. So it does get better. So that's what I would say, focus on being gentle with yourself, and then, incorporate, obviously, looking at the products that you're putting in and on your body, being aware of obesogens. These are ingredients in personal care products, for example, that cause us to gain weight. They mimic estrogen in our body. So being mindful of what you're putting in and on your body, being mindful of the chemicals in the food you're eating, reading the labels. This was my area of expertise for so many years. High fructose corn syrup, trans fats, artificial sweeteners. I know that some people believe they're great and they're fine. Personally, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. I believe that how they make me feel, I get a headache from it. I know now there's been research lately, showing and linking it to weight gain. So there are so many things that, that are within our control that we can do, that you're doing what you're doing by educating and sharing that information all helps. It helps us at this stage.
I was part of your Menopause Summit program that you had. It was incredible. Like the caliber of speakers that you had was just mind blowing. I do remember you in a conversation with an expert around seed oil.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Let's go there for a sec, because you told about your story and your seaweed, about the inflammation. So we're going to talk, ladies, about seed oil and how that one ingredient in your diet could be a game changer in your inflammation. So let's go there for a little bit. Seed oil. First off, what is seed oil? What's good seed oil and bad seed oil? Heated versus not heated, and where do we find it, and how do we stay away from it?
So this is so I always give credit where credit is due. And this is Dr. Catherine or Dr. Kate Shanahan's work. This has been her mission. And she's on a mission to educate everybody really on how detrimental seed oils are. So for example, canola, soy, sunflower, safflower, corn, grapeseed. These are all oils that you find in so many products. And by the way, even in organic products, like I was at a trade show a couple of weeks ago, I was reading ingredient labels. I'm like, sunflower oil, safflower oil. I'm like, and when you bring it up, they're like, a lot of the companies switched from canola oil because it had such a bad rap to sunflower oil, which you see very prominent now, even in hummus and like in all different products. And it's good. I say that's going to be the next trend. Companies are going to remove them and they're going to switch to an avocado oil or a palm oil, sustainably sourced, of course. They're going to look at different types of oils that are not as detrimental for us. So through Dr. Kate's research, she found that it actually creates oxidative stress or inflammation in our body. So it creates that inflammation. My story with it before I interviewed Dr. Kate, and that's why I love what I do so much. And thank you, by the way. I'm so happy that you loved our summit. We really, it blew our minds. Like it was so amazing. And if your listeners want to sign up for the next one and get on our list, they can just go to our newsletter and put their name in our newsletter at wearemorphus.com. And I'm guessing you'll have a link below. And
yes, absolutely.
So we're going to do another one in 2023. So, so she said that it can lead to inflammation. And I remember when I was talking to her, I went and I tried it, or it was before, I forget it, the timeline. And I was like, well, wait a minute, I don't have any seed oils, but I was having a lot of pain in my body still, like, especially under the pads of my feet. So I'd get up in the morning and I'd have like pins and needles under my feet. And I'm like, why am I having it? And for the longest time, I'm like, again, this is what I do. And I'm reading my labels. And anyway, so when I spoke to Dr. Kate, she's like, read the labels. Maybe there's something in there that maybe has seed oils in it. So I was like, okay, let me go check. And I went in and looked at my package of seaweed, and it was from Costco. And I'm like, I eat a package of these every day. I love seaweed, obviously, for our thyroid. And it had sunflower oil in it. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I totally missed it. So I removed it. It probably took like 3 weeks or 4 weeks and the pain was gone. Like it was gone. Now I'd already, the rest of my, I was already eating like the, quality proteins, like everything. My diet was already, I'd already eliminated a lot of the artificial ingredients that can also create that inflammation. And I was eating an anti-inflammatory diet. And that was the one piece of the puzzle for me. And it made a huge difference to this day. If I have, let's say I'm ordering out from a restaurant and I try my best not to have any of the oils, or I ask questions or ask if they can use a different type of oil. But to this day, if I end up having it, I will wake up with the pain underneath my feet and the pads of my feet. So it's really, and Dr. Kate says it takes a few weeks. It takes a year to get those seed oils out of your cells, actually, like a whole year. I interviewed her. She's amazing. Like on my podcast, which is Menopause Reimagined. You can go listen. I did 2 interviews with her, a part 1 and part 2, and you can listen to the full interview, but she is leading the research on seed oils. So these are the things we want to avoid. What do we want instead? Avocado oil, olive oil, sustainably sourced palm oil, as well as coconut oil.
And not heated, right? So taking it in its raw.
Well, you can heat avocado oil. You can heat avocado oil. You can heat certain olive oils. You can heat palm oil. Also, it has a very high, you can heat it at a high temperature. Coconut oil, I wouldn't go over like a 350. It turns green, actually. You don't want coconut oil too much. And you want to be mindful of coconut oil too. So I am I believe in eating good quality fats, but one of the things I do want to mention that's important to note, and this is more, this is my experience and from what I understand from a lot of the nutrition experts and women that I've spoken to, is that keto, if you go very, very high fat and you don't feel really good, just keep that in mind that, for me, for example, I can't have more than, let's say, 30 grams of saturated fat a day. If I have more than that, I actually feel nauseous. And a lot of women have nausea in this phase of life. So it could be just something to think about and noodle on, that maybe it has to do with the amount of fat that you are consuming in a day, specifically, your saturated fat. So just keep it in mind. I'm not saying that it's linked to heart disease. I did a lot of myth busting with Dr. Johnny Bowden on my podcast. So we talked about the great cholesterol myth. If my podcast has like some really great interviews as well as yours, which I'm sure you probably touched upon it too, but just be mindful. That's all. I just say, I never say don't have this, don't have that, other than things that I know that may be, contributing to your hot flashes or your symptoms, but just be mindful and listen to your body. That's the key, right?
I love that. And let's go into kind of the diet conversation, or what should I eat, to change it up. I know for me, I played around. I was a vegetarian for like 15 years, heading into menopause, vegetarian, lots of beans, lots of lentils, lots of grains. And I went and did the metabolic balance program, and my blood work came out and they were like paleo. And I just remember freaking out, having to do the research. I remember ordering a ton of books, following Samantha Gladys, who is an expert around Hashimoto's and paleo diet. And so reluctantly, I started to do paleo. And the weight started to come off. The inflammation started to go away. So today I'm pretty much paleo, and it works for me. And I honestly, Andrea, thought I would never get here. If you would have asked me even 5 years ago as a vegetarian, oh, Nicole, you're one day might be a paleo, I would have laughed at you and said, never. I've watched too many movies. I've watched and listened to too many podcasts. I will never put meat in my body again. And here I am going, paleo. I eat a ton of vegetables and low glycemic fruit and some good healthy fat, but this is where I land, and this is where I feel the best. And how about for you? Because we're all different, right? We're all going to show up differently. But let's touch on this because it's really important. It's like the number one question I get is, how should I eat? What should I eat? What diet should I follow?
It's a great question. And yes, I'm paleo too. And this is a touchy one, because if you're vegan or you're vegetarian, you may not be open to trying animal-based protein. But what we see is that animal-based protein, like a paleo diet, incorporating animal-based foods, is really the best diet for women who are in perimenopause and menopause. And a lot of the reason is because if you're following a vegetarian or a vegan diet, you have to, in order to get that much protein, we need about 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So in order to get that much protein, you're also getting a lot of carbohydrates. And we know that we're more prone to insulin resistance in this stage of life, blood sugar balance issues, right? So that's why a paleo diet works really well. Keto, which is really, really high fat, doesn't work so well. And it's, in my opinion, it's not really a great long-term solution, but the paleo way of eating, it's like eating real food, right? Like just eat your real food, eat the way, our ancestors did. If you are really adamant about not incorporating animal foods into your diet, which I understand, not everybody wants to, or or willing to try it, then just try to get your protein sources from sources that don't have as much as many carbohydrates. So that's really the key, because you really have to balance your blood sugar. Now, you can even try using like a CGM, which is a continuous glucose monitor. I wore one for over a year. I took it off now, but I have one because I had the award ceremony and I was wearing a tank top. And I'm like, I don't think I'm going to take it off for that. So I took it off, but I was wearing one for a year because it really helped me to understand. I always say I'm an N of one. I am constantly doing research. It's my passion. And I wanted to understand what our blood sugar was doing in this stage of life, what was spiking it. And even being paleo, for me, if I have sweet potato, I have to have a very small amount because it'll still spike my blood sugar. So understanding like what you're eating, when you're eating it, what to eat first, like starting with your veggies, these are things we learned in nutrition school, right?
Yeah.
Start with your vegetables, then incorporate your protein. And then from there, and your protein with your fat. So and then if you want to have your carbohydrates, introduce that after, because if you're doing it on an empty stomach, then it's going to spike your protein, right?
Right.
Spike your blood sugar. So I think that's the key, is just focusing on your protein. We need to get enough protein. When you have enough protein, it stops you from being snacky throughout the day. Like I'll know if I have enough protein, if I ate enough, that I'm not hungry throughout between my meals. Right. If I don't eat enough protein, I'm snacking. I'm hungry. And believe me, I'm not perfect at all. Sometimes I don't get enough and I'm like, oh, I want those cassava chips. Like, I still love my cassava chips, right? I wrote the book, Unjunk Your Junk Food. Like, I'm not saying never have anything that you like again, right? So I'm a practical nutritionist. So focus on your protein, focus on your good quality fats, focus on your vegetables, your low glycemic fruits, focus on your hydration, and for 80% of the time. And if you could do that for 80% of the time, then enjoy the other 20%. Again, if you're not on a specific mission, and because we have to have fun, like we still have to enjoy ourselves. Like if it becomes too much of it's too hard, we're not going to do it anyways, right?
Right. Yeah, I love that. Okay, I'm going to go here, and it's a conversation of that glass of wine at night, because you're in that habit. And that was me. I was like a wine drinker, been drinking alcohol since I was like 14 years old, playing the dance. How much can I have? How much can I get away with without feeling like a bag of, you know what?
Yeah.
And it started to change in my body. I could not tolerate even the 2 glasses, and even the 1 glass would throw me. And then a glass would, I would find I'd have a hot flash, and I'd be like, what's all this about? So I have now played with this feeling, and I've got the Aurora ring. And even if I just, have 1 glass, it will impact my sleep now. So I just, for the most part, choose not to drink anymore and find other things to drink, because I know how it impacts my sleep, my brain fog, my hot flashes, everything. Some women are going to listen to this and say, are you telling me, Nicole, that I can't drink anymore? That is going to freak a lot of women out, but I want to hear it from you. You're the expert. You've been studying this. Let's talk about the drink. How bad is it for women when it comes to perimenopause and menopause and the symptoms and our brain health?
So Dr. Daniel Amen, he's a psychiatrist. He talks a lot about alcohol. So if your listeners want to really understand its effect on the brain, I would highly recommend following him. He's on TikTok, he's all over the place, and he's been doing it. He's scanned thousands, I think like upwards of, a lot, tens of thousands of people's brains and their effects, whether it's, on alcohol in particular, and then other things as well. And he always says how it's not good for brain, and you could see like it's not good for brain health. He says different things, the brain, it shows it in different ways. Now, obviously he's the expert when it comes to how it affects the brain physically and what it does and emotionally. But I would say I'm not a big fan of alcohol for a couple of reasons, because for us at this phase of life. First of all, the whole wine culture thing is a big conversation, and definitely coming in the last couple of years, like I totally understand that many of us turn to it. And listen, it was a lot over the last couple of years, so I totally get it. However, having said that, if you're having symptoms, you're not sleeping well, you get a lot of hot flashes and night sweats. For me, I remember I was at a friend's house and they offered me some wine, and I'm not a big drinker to start anyways, but I like Prosecco, I like my red wine. And I was like, I haven't had a wine in so long. This is just a few months ago. I'm like, I'm just going to try it. I had literally 2 sips. Done. I had the worst hot flash. It just doesn't, for me, it triggers crazy hot flashes. And for so many women too, because I posted this on my TikTok and they're like, yes, me too, can't do it. So like, it's a big trigger for a lot of us for our symptoms. The other thing is, it disrupts our sleep. So it might help you fall asleep faster, but you're going to wake up in the middle of the night when it's metabolized in your body.
Yeah.
And because sleep is within the top 3 most complained about issues for symptoms in menopause, I'm like, if that's something that we can do to prevent ourselves from waking up at night, because we have so many other reasons. I have focused so much of my research on sleep over the last 5 years. It's incredible about the reasons why we're not waking up. And I actually have 2 surveys in my link in my bio on TikTok that I'm conducting right now. And so if your listeners want to go and fill it out, I did one on sleep and one on signs and symptoms. And we have hundreds of people who filled it out. So we're going to come out, we're going to announce what these are and what the reasons are that we're waking up. So I would say alcohol is a big reason for that. And then the other thing, it's really hard on our liver. So as we go into menopause and perimenopause, our liver changes in volume. We're more prone to something called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So it's just more stress on our liver. Our liver is already, it's that master detox organ in our body. We need to nourish our liver in this phase of our life. So it just, for all of those reasons and more, it's just something that I'm not a fan of. Of course, we're not going to say, don't ever have a drink again. I just say, if you're going to drink alcohol, just be mindful of what you're putting in your body. Just be mindful. And some women have told me that they're like, you know what? I don't care if I get a hot flash. I want my glass of wine. And I'm like, great. At least you understand what that connection is, right? So it's just having that, you're just being mindful. That's it, of how it may affect you.
Awesome. Couple more questions and we'll wrap up, because you and I could talk for a long time. Around low sex drive, maybe dry vagina, something's going on, something's happening. I don't know. It's a big conversation. I've been getting a lot of requests of like, what do I do? My sex drive is non-existent. I'm not getting my period anymore. How do I have that conversation with my partner? What do I do? Is there a magic pill? Do I have a magic cream? What kind of guidance could you give a woman who's just starting down this process of addressing her low libido and uncomfortableness, maybe when she's having sex?
So I just did an amazing interview with a sex therapist on my podcast as well. So it's going to be, I don't know when you're posting this, but it'll be posted very shortly. Okay, great. So, and we talked about it. So the biggest thing for me when I was going into perimenopause was the dryness, the dry vagina, the dry everywhere, the dry eyes, I mean, it was just so much dryness everywhere. But specifically like painful intercourse. I mean, and these aren't things that we talk about so much a lot. It's embarrassing, right? To think like, and I remember, this is a very interesting story. And even if it helps one of your listeners, I want to share this because when I didn't know, like when I went into menopause, I still don't to this day know exactly when I went into menopause. It's the 12, it's the 365 days, 12 months without a cycle. That happened to me twice. And where I got my period after 13 months, the first time, and then the second time, 12 months to the date, I had bleeding. So I'm like, okay, like I thought, I was confused. I didn't really know. And I called my doctor, my gynecologist. I'm like, look, you know what? I just want to get tested because I'm not really sure what's going on. I've gone the 12 months and I'm bleeding. And she's like, yeah, come on in. Let's, if you have any type of bleeding after 12 months, you absolutely should go to the doctor and get tested. Absolutely. Like not even a question, call your gynecologist and go get a test, go get ultrasound, speak to them, get blood work. And I remember she said to me, she's like, it's not your period. You just have dryness. You're bleeding from dryness. And I was like, whoa, that's what? And I was like, that is so interesting to me. So I share that story because for so many of us, it's like, that it's real and it hurts and it's painful. It's like sandpaper, right? It's so dry. So the key is if you're, so it's 2 different discussions. One is a dry vagina and the other one is the libido, right? So if you have vaginal dryness, there is a lot you can do, right? So you can do things like use lubrication, but you can also use some type of topical estrogens. And I've interviewed Dr. Teresa Irwin. She's an OBGYN who specializes in menopause, and she talked about that. So that can help, or you can try hormones, whatever it is you choose to decide, speak to your doctor. And that's something that you can work out with your doctor. But the other thing, so let's go to libido for a minute. The one thing that I find that has helped me tremendously has been something called DHEA. And if you go to the doctor and you go get your DHEA levels tested, you can do it through a Dutch test, you can do it through blood tests. My DHA levels were non-existent for years. If I tell you, even when I was trying to get pregnant, it was so low. And we know that DHA is the longevity hormone. Like if you want it to be higher. And it was like under 0.5 or something. It was really low. And through my gynecologist over the years, I was taking like drops of DHEA, nothing would move the needle. Yeah. And I interviewed, I know I talked, you know, it's because it's like, I just learned from experimenting. So that's why I'm so happy we're talking about it. Yeah. So I interviewed Dr. Chris Shade. He's founder of a company called Quicksilver. And again, the interviews on my podcast. And he's like, you know what, try my DHEA, just try it. And I was like, okay. So I tried his DHEA. If your listeners are in Canada, unfortunately, you can't get it here, but you can speak to your doctor about getting a compounded DHEA and trying it. Or if you have access to the US, you can get capsules, like you can buy capsules, or you can buy his product. Okay. And they just can't ship it over the border because it's a hormone. But you can get it in the US. And I tried it and it completely, like my DHA went from like 0.5 to 10 in like 4 weeks. Like it was unbelievable. And because my DHA increased, my libido increased. It made a huge, and it has an effect on testosterone. So my testosterone levels increased as well. So I was like, okay, very interesting. So that's one thing. The other thing I'd say is go get your thyroid tested, because a symptom of hypothyroidism is low libido. You'd rather be taking out the trash than thinking about sex. So those would be things where I'd say starting points to speak to your doctor about. And I'm very vocal about speaking to a healthcare practitioner, whether it's your medical doctor, your GP, your OBGYN, a functional medicine doctor, a naturopath, like whoever it is, find that person, that team that can help you do the blood work you need done, or do the Dutch test, or do a genetic test. I know you and I both have tried genetic testing. I love genetic testing. So there's a lot we can do to help us in that area, at least a starting point.
I love that. And I think, as we close off, is to give women some hope that it will get better. I know that, like, I work with a lot of women and they're like, I go to my medical doctor, they will only test TSH. They test my basic blood work. They look at it, they say, I'm fine. You're just in menopause now. This extra weight is normal. You're aging. This is just part of the process of aches and pains. I hear that all the time. What hope can you give women when they leave the medical doctor and the medical doctor just kind of goes like this? What is your message? Because I know there's going to be women on here that go, that was just me. That was me yesterday. And I don't now know what to do. Where do I turn to? What advice could you give a woman that's frustrated and almost giving up on feeling good inside their menopausal body?
I say, don't give up. Definitely don't give up. There is hope. There is hope from a nutrition, lifestyle, and supplements. There's hope with hormones, if that's something you choose to go down that route with, body identical or bioidentical hormones. I would say, find the right support team. Follow me on TikTok. My whole goal is to validate and support women on that platform. We're a community of women who help each other. It's really incredible. At Andrea Donsky on TikTok, on Instagram. Look to people like yourself who are educating people, right? Find that support team, talk about it, communicate. If you're looking for a specific doctor, there's an organization called the North American Menopause Society that will give lists of practitioners that specialize in menopause. I know it's a little harder in Canada to find specific practitioners, but if you can find the one that helps you, if you can find somebody that understands it, it can make a big difference. And I would say advocate for yourself. A lot of, this blows my mind. Like, where people, I hear over and over again on TikTok how women are like, I'm dismissed. There's a lot of menopause gaslighting. There's a lot of dismissal in this phase of life, or it's a myth, or menopause is in your head, or you're being too dramatic, or like, it's amazing what we're told as women as we're going through this phase of our life. So I would say, empower yourself. Look at the research, find the people that you're like, no, look, I've had a lot of people who've told me they've showed their husbands, their partners, their doctors, their friends, their family members, my videos, because it's like, okay, this is how I feel, and so finding the right people that you trust, and not just one person, find a group of people that you trust, because everybody is unique in what they talk about, right? And you can learn from a lot of different people. So I would say, definitely don't give up hope. There is a lot you can do nowadays. And just be open-minded, I guess, would be a good way to look at it too.
Awesome. Andrea, that was just such a great conversation. I just so appreciate you so much. I know that when I was going through this journey, it was like, I think you were one of the first people that I reached out to, right? And then you introduced me to the DNA testing, which was mind blowing, right? So then I learned so much about, I'm not a great methylator and I'm not a great detoxer, right? And so, and then, could I go on hormones safely without worrying about, the consequence of that. And so, I just really appreciate you, because as Andrea said, is you got to find the team, right? So I started to build the team. And I have to say, I probably went through about 7 different naturopathic doctors before I landed on 2 that I kind of, and I found a hormone doctor, like a medical doctor, but a hormone doctor that understands DNA, that understands the Dutch hormone panel, that understands that, in 4 months, I will be going back to her to redo everything so that we can make sure the stuff that we have implemented is going to work. And that's so important. So, to your message, like, ladies, don't give up. Find the team. And yes, you will have to invest in yourself. There's no doubt that I'm sure you, Andrea, myself, we are investing in ourselves. We are investing the time. We are investing in the testing. We're investing in the food and the lifestyle and the self-care. But it's so worth it when you can do that, because at the end of the day, what do we want? Health is priceless, right? When you're sick.
Oh, 100%. And when you say investing, I wish, and I know you're talking about investing in self-love and taking care of ourselves, but also when you look at the monetary side of it, I just wish one day that it would be covered, that we wouldn't have to worry about spending money out of pocket to try hormones if that's what you wanted to do. It could be costly, right? So hopefully one day, and now that we're talking about it so much more, I always say Gen X women don't go into menopause lightly. We're screaming it from the rooftops. So, hopefully there'll be a lot of change in the next few years. And it's nice to see how far it's even come in the last year or two, like how we're talking about it. And change is coming. It's coming. And the more we talk about it, the more we educate, the more we inform, the more empowered we will be. And that is at the end of the day, that is my goal, to empower women to take charge of their health and their symptoms at this phase of their life.
Amazing. Thank you again for joining us, Andrea Donsky. We are so grateful that you got to share your expertise, and a lot of resources that we will post down below so that they can join on your newsletter and know about the upcoming menopause program that you will have for next year, the summit. And then, of course, following you on Instagram for a little bit of humor, compassion, and education. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nicole.
I want to say thank you for listening to today's episode. If this message landed for you, make sure to leave a review and tag me, Nicole Scott, at Gorgeous Gray Movement, and make sure to share with your friends. You can head over to my free Facebook community, Gorgeous Gray Movement, or subscribe to my YouTube channel for more inspiring interviews. If you are still struggling and need additional support, you can take a look at my website, nicolescott.ca, and learn more about my new Menopause Reset program that I'm so excited for. Until next time, ladies, be well and own your sparkle.